All right. Buffalo brother George, how are you today?
Oh, Buffalo Brother John, we're back. We're on our way to another football season. OTAs just happened. Mandatories are coming up. And then before you know it, we will be at the training camp in good old St. John Fisher.
That's right. Very exciting. Did you uh did you enjoy the draft?
I love the draft. I thought we did a good job this year. They certainly attacked the defensive side of the ball. They did pick up an offensive player. It's a number three tight end. We'll talk about that later, but they went out and Bean made some moves both for free agents and in the draft to attack that porous defense.
All right. So our topic for the day is the Buffalo Bill, like the state of the Bills, but specifically the offense.
Yeah, we looked at when you look at the last year's numbers, John, the Bills offense was actually number two in scoring. They scored 525 points, almost 30.9 points per game. They were only behind the Detroit Lions, and they were ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. So with no name offense other than Josh Allen, they sure got the job done in scoring points.
Okay, well, I don't know how I don't know that it was a no-name offense. James Cook made himself a name for himself. Like he
That's
made
right.
a name for himself.
We were number two in scoring. They were number nine. They had the number nine rushing offense with 2,220 yards. Cook had just over 1,000 yards, but that was his second year in a row at over 1,000 yards. And when you talk about the Bills rush for 2,230 yards and he got 1,000, and Josh Allen got somewhere over 700, it was almost those two guys. It was a total rushing or offense.
That's
And
right.
then on the passing side of the ball, the Bills were tied with the Packers as the number five passing offensive yards team with 3,938 yards. And our quarterback, Josh Allen, finally brought home the NFL MVP honors.
Yes, he did. Yes. Uh I it was ironically it was not his best statistical year. So it seemed like they felt he did quite a bit but less with no digs, no main receivers to help him. He still passed for nearly 4,000 yards, and they went ahead and gave him the consolation prize MVP.
It's a consolation prize. Okay. Well, he did throw for less yards than he did a year ago, but he also threw for a heck of a lot less interceptions and
And
almost
he
no
and he
fumbles.
threw and he threw for less touchdowns.
Yeah, but he may have thrown for less touchdowns, but James Cook scored 16 touchdowns himself, 12 on the ground and four in the air. I mean, that guy made
Well,
he was a factor.
James Cook's stats really shouldn't affect whether or not Josh Allen is the MVP.
Well, I don't know that I agree, and by that I
Yeah.
mean when you got a running back that's playing that well, you keep the defense honest, and it takes some of the pressure off the pass rush on Josh Allen. They have to watch out for James Cook.
Oh, you're saying that maybe Allen didn't deserve the MVP because he had all this help.
Well, I don't know if you want to call it all this help, but it certainly was a contribution to him
Well, I
getting that
think Allen
award.
deserved the MVP no matter what you say.
Okay. I think he deserved it as well. And but I do think that establishing that running game, we finally got the running game working, and we got it working 2 years in a row. And
Well, really,
we saw huge improvement on the
we
offensive
didn't get
side
it
of the Bills.
working 2 years in a row as much as we got it working the 9 games that Brady took over.
Okay, yeah,
But it
that's
was
fair. I
Brady
mean,
that, it was a change in offensive philosophy there.
yeah, Cook had like 1,100 yards rushing the year before, but he didn't have those touchdown stats.
right?
They finally said, um, Josh Allen, you don't have to be Superman. You don't have to run everything inside the 5 yard line. You've got wide receivers, you've got running backs that are on this team that can get this ball in the end zone. And by
Well,
doing that, that took some of the
I'm not
pressure off
sure
of
that
Josh.
he did have a lot of, I'm not sure that, like, they ran Allen in the red zone and ran Allen inside the 5 all the time. They didn't take away his runs with additional runs. Like, they didn't run running backs on goal line and at short yardage situations. They still used Allen. So I don't think your analysis makes any sense there. That
Well, don't you think that
Cook's scoring runs were almost off from long distance. He didn't have
well,
short yardage runs except for
don't
maybe
you
one or
think that
two.
when you're down inside the red zone, the uh, the opposition defense was really keen on Josh Allen because he could throw or he could run, and that gave James Cook the ability to take that ball around the end or up the middle.
Well, what I'm saying is it should have, but Cook's scoring plays were long distance plays, so they didn't
Well,
use him that way. I mean, they just didn't use they didn't choose to use him that way. They
well,
still
that's
yeah.
still, yeah, that's okay. 12 rushing touchdowns is impressive in my. I
I
think
did
that's fantastic.
did he have 16 total or
16 total. He had
no
four
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 catching?
receiving and 12 rushing. And I think he had only 2 or 3 rushing the year before. So this
Yeah, I
was a
think
big banner year for Cook.
yeah, it's a big one. Okay, so we are up to uh what do you want? We have what do you think the offense is going to be this year?
Well, when I look at the before I say what it's going to be this year, I look at what we have and what they did last year.
Mhm.
And our top 3 receivers are still in place. And our top 3 receivers were Shakir, um,
Yeah, right.
Coleman, and Kincaid.
Okay.
And those 3 guys are still on the team. And with a contract year now for James Cook, that should keep the running game unchanged. We should have a good running game, and we have our 3 top receivers still in play.
Okay.
And we maintained our offensive line. We had a good offensive line last year, and they're still there, and they were healthy. And these guys played almost, or they did play every game, all of them across that line. And they're there, and they're big.
Yes, they are. All right. You
And
got the good, the bad, the ugly.
okay, so for good, we added a number 3 tight end, Chase Lunt. So what's so good about Chase Lunt? He's a blocking tight end. Can he make a catch? Sure. But we had Morris. They weren't going to pay him more to be a number 3 tight end. And this guy, Chase Lunt, is a true blocking tight end. And that's what we need on that line. Um, Another good thing, the Bills, I don't know if you realize it. I don't think I realized it, but the Bills gave up the fewest sacks in the NFL last year. They only had 14. Now that's
I did
protection
know
by your
that.
line. Yeah.
Well,
And
I disagree. I think it's because Josh Allen. I think there are
oh,
lots of times the line was a sieve and Allen stopped, but still there was only 14 sacks. There was a shitload of pressures.
well, okay, but when you all I can go by is how they measure and what they measure. And what they measure is the sacks. And they only had 14, and that was way less than other people. That was a fantastic job by that offensive line.
Well, I would say it's a great job by Josh Allen. But okay,
Okay. All
next.
right. And then we added 2 receivers. We added Josh Palmer, who has 4.5 speed. He's a fast receiver. And we added Elijah Moore, who's got a 4.35 40-yard speed. And so now with 2 speedy receivers and they're both on the outside, John, that gives you something dimension we did not have last year. speed on the outside. And I think that has to do with a lot why we didn't see a lot of deep balls by Josh Allen last year. These guys were not getting open down the field.
Yeah.
And now they added not one, but they added two veteran wide receivers that got speed and can get down the field. And they still have their top three receivers that they had last year. Now, they were their top three receivers last year. I'm not saying that they were great. You know, our that we did not have, and this is a bad point. We had no 1,000-yard receivers on our team.
Yeah, no,
That's bad.
yeah.
And but now we've got not just depth of receivers, we've got speed in there as well.
Well,
And we've got more youth.
it definitely did appear that there were times when Allen had no one to throw the ball to.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
And we did
maybe
add a
this will
wide
help.
receiver in the draft.
The thing is, they've added speed in Elijah Moore for sure. I don't know that they've added great quality in receiving, but they've added speed. So we'll see
Okay.
what Brady could do with it.
You know, our top three receivers, we had Shakir had like 800 and some yards.
Right.
Coleman had only had 500 yards, and he only played like 11 games. So there was an injury involved, and he was still one of the top three receivers. With 500 yards, that maybe that's a number 5 receiver on your team. And with Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore, I think they can both outclass not Derek Coleman. You know who I mean. Keon Coleman. Derek Coleman. Wrong sport. So I don't know if we'll have 1,000-yard receiver. I think we certainly have the possibility to have 1,000-yard receiver. But if we had 3 receivers that are all in the 800 to 900-yard range, that's a lot of receiving yards. And that could be some good long depth as well. Long receptions.
Well, we could. That would be good. Like, right, as of last year, the one player we had that anytime he touched the ball, he could take it to the house was James Cook.
Right.
He was the closest we had to that. Now, I don't know if they could figure out how to utilize Elijah Moore in a capacity where he could be explosive, or Josh Palmer. The thing about Palmer, as exciting as it is to bring in a fellow with 4.5 speed or whatever, he was a backup. Like Cooper Kupp and Pakua, they absolutely played in front of him. And when they decided to let Cooper Kupp walk, they also let Palmer walk. I mean, they weren't like, oh, we're going to use Palmer now. We know they knew what they had in him, and they weren't like, oh, we got to keep him. They were like, yeah, he's a backup. We don't need to keep him. So we'll see if the Rams regret that decision or not, and we'll see if Brady could do something with Palmer, and we'll see if he could do something with Moore. Moore's got great speed, but he hasn't been impactful in the league yet. So we hope.
Well, let's hope so. You know, there's a lot of, smoke coming out that these guys did not play with good quarterbacks, and Josh Allen, of course, is one of the best in the league and NFL MVP, and that they're going to have the ability now to be on the receiving end of a top quarterback, and that's going to make the difference. We'll see. I mean, we had the guys that are replacing were Mac Hollins. You know, he had 5 touchdowns for us. Not a ton, but that's okay. That's the kind of guy that might be your number 4 or number 5 receiver. And he had 5 touchdowns. That's not bad. And you had Amari Cooper that we picked up in midseason. We thought he was going to be okay, but he doesn't have any. He's the injuries. He just doesn't have the ability to play.
That's why he was.
That's who was available.
Yeah,
and I think now they're starting out with a better 4th and 5th receiver than we did last year at this time.
Yeah,
with Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore.
That certainly could be. It certainly is hope, and better than was it Sherwood and Hardy?
Yes,
like Hardy had great speed, but he had a lot of limitations in his game that that affected them, and they were never able to unleash him in a long, as a stretch receiver. So they were never really able to utilize him in that capacity. In fact, a couple of times Josh threw the ball long to him, it would be intercepted. Just deep throws that were intercepted. So hopefully this will work out better. And there's nothing wrong if Keon Coleman plays better. That'd be okay, right? If we see improvement,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that'd be
come on,
okay.
this is gonna be his second year, and you know how tough it is on a first year for a player after getting ready for that the what do you call it? Oh, you know what I mean. And when they come out of college, they got to get ready for that
The draft,
not the draft, but
the pro days, and the
yeah,
combine and
exactly.
stuff. Okay,
Yeah. But there are receivers that did do very well in the league last year that were rookies.
yeah.
But Coleman wasn't one of them. He got an injury and he didn't seem to know how to come back from that injury.
Well, he
And
certainly
we're
did
going to
get
see if he matures a little bit.
he certainly did get an injury. He wasn't tearing up the books. He didn't look like a great receiver before he got injured.
Yeah.
So he was a second round draft pick, but he was the first receiver off the board in the second round. And unfortunately, other receivers that came off after him had better years, like McCardell, or whatever his name was. So the kid out of Georgia, so there were guys on the board when they drafted him that had better first years. So hopefully Keon will kind of begin to show and show why they picked him, and hopefully he'll improve. All right, so do you want, before we go on to predictions, do you want to say anything about that? You talked about the tight end room and the new player. Do you want to talk at all about the tight ends being good, bad, or ugly? The possibility of either Knox or Kincaid having a good year this year?
Well, you know what? I gotta say that when Knox is healthy, he's consistent. We paid him a lot of money like you would pay a number one tight end. I don't know that he's a number one tight end. I think he's a number two tight end, to be honest with you. But when he's called upon, he can block and he can get open and he can make a catch. Kincaid, we're not seeing what we expected. That's the problem. The problem with Kincaid is they drafted him in the number one hole. He was a first round draft pick. Yeah, they drafted Kincaid in the first round. And so they have high expectations from him, and he's not living up to those expectations. And if you want to blame it on it doesn't matter what you blame it on, injuries or inexperience or doesn't get the body right. I don't know, whatever the excuse is, it doesn't matter. He's not living up to his draft round pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the one thing that I saw, I know that there's been a lot of talk about Josh Allen had a high percentage of uncatchable passes thrown to Kincaid. And the only thing I've watched 4 games from the past year, and one thing that's jumping out at me is because of issues with the offensive line, like because of pressure, Allen did a better job of throwing ball away instead of making bad decisions. And I think Kincaid was just the guy he was often a target on throwaway balls, which is unfortunate for Kincaid because it makes it seem like he was not doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
But there was a throwaway ball. The ball landed between Kincaid and Coleman. I mean, it was a throwaway. And it hit the ground between those two. And I think Kincaid got charged with a target there. And it was totally uncatchable because it was intended to be caught. He wasn't putting the ball, he wasn't risking the ball. He was just getting rid of it.
Well, that could correlate to what you said is they're getting pressure. They may not have given up the sacks, but they're still giving up some pressures.
The other thing that I think surprised the Bills was in year 2, Kincaid wasn't getting much separation when they counted on it. Like when they had him as the primary and he takes off and does a route and Allen's looking, there isn't a lot of separation there. And in the NFL, the amount of separation is going to be small. But they were using big nickels or safeties to cover him, and that negated his athleticism, which meant that he wasn't really open on his route running. So they didn't use the linebackers so much to cover him, where he might have had a real athletic advantage, you know. So we'll have to see if they could work, if they could find a way to utilize him better, or if he also will just improve. Like, I'm sure he's out there running routes today, you know. All right, George, do you want to have any predictions on what the Bills might do this year?
Well, here's what I'm not ready to predict their record, but let's say I think that if Josh Allen stays healthy and he's now a married man and his life is everything's going
As a
perfect
matter of
and
fact, I think it happened maybe yesterday. There
yeah, I saw some
there were
photos
some
from the
photos,
wedding.
yeah,
So
some photos that.
everything looks wonderful. Everything's going exactly perfect for him, and let's hope it stays that way. And if he stays healthy, I don't see any reason why the Bills wouldn't still be another top high scoring team again. Maybe not number one. Last year they were number two, but they should be within the top five. I don't see why they wouldn't. Now, when you look at the Super Bowl winners, and they're not necessarily the top offense because you need a defense too. But the but the Bills offense, John, they score points, and I don't see any reason to think that's gonna slow down. Do I think that James Cook is going to get another 16 touchdowns again? Maybe not. That was a heck of a year.
Yeah.
But there's enough talent on this team to pick up if Cook slacks off here or there, and maybe not slack off, maybe slack off is not the right word. He's going to get more attention from the defense, but there's plenty of talent to pick up those lost touchdowns.
Yeah, if he gets 7 or 8 touchdowns this year, that would be a great year. It just would
Mhm.
be reduction from the previous year. And you
Mhm.
might have somebody going, oh, he had took a step back. But it could
Yeah,
still
I
be a
mean,
really good
if
year.
he does 8 touchdowns and Ray Davis gets three and
Well, it
Ty
doesn't
Johnson gets 3 or 4,
the
and all of
wide
a
rec
sudden,
the wide
mhm,
receivers could pick up some of those. They
absolutely.
may not be running, they might be passing, but I mean the wide receivers could pick up some of those. They could, as long as the offense scores.
We all know about James Cook and his contract issues, and he held out from the non-mandatory OTAs, and that's his prerogative. He can do that. But being a contract year, you got to think to yourself, this is a year that I mean, he had a great year last year, and I think he thought he was playing for a contract that he was going to get it this year, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And now I think he's going to have to do it again, and I think we'll see him have another great year, another 1,000-yard rushing again, and a good number of touchdowns.
I hope you're
And
right. I hope you're right. That would be a wonderful thing to have happen.
and I mentioned this before, there's more speed at the wide receiver position this year
Yes.
than last year. And that should give us a more lethal deep passing game. Or in the case of Curtis Samuels, if he's healthy this year, John, it's going to give us an option for the wide receiver screen where he can get some yak yards. If you have a healthy Curtis Samuels and you have a Josh Palmer and you have Elijah Moore rotating and you have your rookie Coleman getting better, and if you got a healthy um, Kincaid. I mean, these guys are looking like they're stacked.
Yeah. Look, if it's if they use more wide receiver screens and they're getting heaps of yards, that's great. I got so sick and tired of watching Allen throw the ball to wide receiver screens and watching them get sacked or
They
taken
yeah,
within a yard of the
get
line.
taken down or
Yeah. So
losing yards.
if they could do it and it's successful, that's fine. But I began to criticize Brady for a lack of diversity in his passing attack when you get inside the red zone and the first play is always a run, Allen designed run for Allen. And the second
Yes,
play is a
very
designed
predictable.
run to Allen. And
Hmm.
then they would try to throw them down. And many times those were short passes right around the line of scrimmage, hoping that not Kincaid, but Shakir or perhaps Cook could run for the first down. And when they didn't, they just kicked the field goal. And that was just, now that I'm saying that, and yet they scored the second most number of touchdowns. So it was not as diverse as I would like. It wasn't as explosive as I would have liked. But in the end, it was pretty successful.
You know, and if we go back a second, we were doing our good, bad, and ugly. Somehow I missed it, but the ugly was there was 29 penalties called on our two offensive guards, 13 on the Snowman, and 16 on Spencer Brown.
But
And
that's
most
not
of those
maximum.
things was
Those guys, yeah, those guys
you
jump.
know,
They need to step. Yeah,
movement
that's not an
or
accident.
whatever, and that's gotta change. I mean, that is bad. 29 offensive penalties just between the two guards when we had a good offensive line. That's got to improve, Jen.
I don't disagree. I think that that is a pretty good indication of mm, their proficiency. I mean, that's what they are. They they aren't their stats, their sack statistics are better than I think they should be
Mhm.
or would be if it wasn't for the fact they had an escape artist as a quarterback.
Mhm.
So, I think that that is an indication is like they jump because they need it.
They
They,
need that
yeah,
extra step
they're
to get
very
in
concerned
position
about that first
to
step.
stop that pass rush. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right,
Well,
we are at our time limit.
okay. Well, that's all I got to say. I'm looking forward to this year, and next we'll talk about the defense. How's
Defense.
that?
Yeah, so the state of the Bills offense so far, we think it's going to be very similar, maybe even a little better.
Right.
Okay. Feel like bye everyone.
Bye, everyone. Go
Go
Bills.
Bills.